We're going to make a creepy deep sea monster inspired by those anglerfish by making a mini monster mask. This is a great way to practice your sculpting, especially if you want to get into making monster masks. All you need is your clay, your tools, and a flat surface. So let's jump right into it. All I'm using here is an old TV dinner tray that was wooden, and I'm scoring the surface so that our clay sticks. It's going to be a bit more difficult taking it off at the end, and it's better to have your clay stick to it and then have it falling off halfway through your project. And the medium we're using is called Monster Clay Gray Medium, which I do find a bit more waxy than the other monster clay that I use, but I really enjoyed this. So we build up the surface and we draw a line straight down the middle, trying to figure out where the eyes are going to go, where the center is, and it just makes it easier for placement of, say, the eyes and the mouth. At this point, I really don't know what I want to do. I know I want to do some type of deep sea creature, and I had a bunch of reference of anglerfish and some monsters that I found on Google. I don't do any drawings when I'm doing this because I'm terrible at drawing. I usually just get some clay, slap it on there, and just kind of try and build up the shapes to see what comes out. So right now we're just building up the surface, trying to find forms. I want this creature to have like jutting teeth coming out. Like the gums on the top are pushed back and they're just jumping out. And a split kind of chin or lip at the bottom. Raking the surface just to kind of smooth everything out. A really cool raking tool you can make yourself is this, which is just one of those saw blades. You heat it up so you can bend it, because if you don't heat it up, well, it's going to snap if you try and bend it. Get some plumber putty and, well, this is a pen, and you just kind of fasten it right to it, and it works really great. After raking it, we draw another center line. It just makes things a lot easier, especially if you want to go for a symmetrical look. Rolling up some tubes of clay, trying to give me an idea of where I want the upper lips to be, and honestly just trying to make some interesting shapes on these bottom split lips. Carving out the eyes, which I decided it's going to have 6 eyes instead of 4. Because 6 eyes is creepy. Just use one of your loop tools, push it in there and twist, and you can get these nice little holes. But it's also monster clay, so you can heat up your tool, stick it in there, and it'll melt it, which is also an easier way to make holes and stuff like that. Rolling up some balls for the eyes. Just trying to push it in there, making sure that we don't push too hard because we still want them to be spherical. That's the word, right? Spherical, yes. Measuring the eyes to make sure each one is roughly the same size. I always recommend measuring and checking twice, as they say. Right now, it's in its ugly phase. At the moment, I do have an idea in my head of what I want to do. And right now, I want to get these eyes in place with the eyelids. So we rolled up some little noodles of clay and just placed them around the eyes. Try and make it look like an eye shape. The lids, upper lids, bottom lids, and then around the eyes here, we're going to add in some brows later on. But right now, we're just trying to smooth all these eyelids in. Just trying to make sure it's all symmetrical. That's probably the hardest part. Trying to make sure everything's symmetrical. Still working on it. It's not like using ZBrush or Blender, like the digital sculpting apps where you have symmetry turned on, you sculpt one side and then it mirrors it to the other. So that's why I always say, if you're sculpting in clay, you want to make things symmetrical, make sure you're always measuring. Just try your best to match things up. Unless you're going for like a really weird looking monster, then that's not symmetrical, then it's totally fine. Drawing a line, trying to separate kind of like the top half here. So I almost wanted this top half to be like a shell, almost like a hard shell. And then the lower half is going to be more flesh-like. And I had this idea of giving this aquatic creature almost like I don't know what you would call it, almost like a mustache, a deep sea mustache, like a fleshy mustache. So we lay on some clay here on the sides. And then we're going to lay even more clay by pushing down and then just kind of flaring it out, which will give us this kind of interesting shape. It'll be easier to come in with our tool later and make kind of lines to represent the deep sea mustache. Get our blowtorch, we heat it up so we can come in here with our sculpting tool and start laying in the lines. Try and make everything nice and flowy. And then you'll see what I mean about the mustache. First, I was going to give him kind of like mutton chops, but I decided that it's going to go all around the upper lip there and off to the sides, which actually gives it a pretty cool, unique look. I picture this thing swimming underneath the water and like this fleshy mustache things are like swirling as it's swimming, right? That was the vision I had in my head anyways. And then we're going to add kind of like a beard, a fleshy beard as well. Sculpt in the forms, trying to make everything look nice and, well, not nice and neat, but you know, cool looking. Give it a bit of a flow. Make it look like fleshy hair. Then we get our blowtorch and we're just trying to smooth everything down. Soften those edges. It's time to lay in the teeth. So I sculpt some holes where the teeth are going to go. Just gives it's just easier to do that for myself so I know where the teeth are going to lay. And then it's easier to actually make the gums. If you sculpt out little holes, then place the teeth in there, it's a lot easier to make those little creases above the teeth. And you can see what I mean by placing the holes first and then putting the teeth in. It's just a lot easier to create that gum, the recess of the gums. Actually starting to look like something. You know, we went through that ugly phase and now it's looking like some type of creature. And we just gotta keep following our creative juice and let it flow. Adding a noodle to the top to represent the lip, because these gums are like jutting out pretty far. Do my best to make a weird fish lip. Do fishes have lips? I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. Adding in some of the brow regions to the eyes, so it doesn't look so weird. And honestly, adding these brows in actually gives it a better look. You know, it's fuller. It doesn't look so weird. We add a little piece of clay to the middle here, which is actually going to lead up all the way to its little antenna. I'm not sure if you call it an antenna, but it's like one of those lights that the anglerfishes have. Start creasing in the eyelids, give it a little bit of texture. Just use your tool brush, create some lines, soften those edges as well. You can use a blowtorch or your sculpting tools to do that. Then I add in the irises, which I was debating on not doing irises, but I wanted to see what it looked like with like the cat eyes, right? So I could have carved it in like that, but I decided to just lay little pieces of tube on top of it. I take one of my sculpting tools that kind of has like a triangle tip to it and push it into the clay to create these really small, intricate little scales, just to give it more texture, because it's a fish, right? Fishes have scales. And I'm so glad I do this because it really makes this piece pop a lot more. Then I add in little bits of clay, little round bits of clay to give it just a little bit more texture, like little bumps and stuff on the skin and the scales. Make it a little bit more grody. Then we take a piece of wire here and push clay all around it, trying to make that little light that hangs off the top of anglerfishes. Add little spikes to it as well, you know, just more texture. Add in the little ball there, we connect it to the head, just trying to add in more texture here, little noodles of clay to make it look more fleshy. I'm not sure if this is like a bony part or a fleshy part, but I'm trying to make it look kind of gross, kind of fleshy. And then to finish it off, we take some lighter fluid and we just start dousing it, rubbing it all in, trying to get rid of the fingerprints, little balls of clay, and it just smooths the surface right out, as you can see. We're all done. Why did I pry it off the board? Well, I'm gonna have to melt this down and reuse the clay. I know, all that hard work and I'm just gonna destroy it. The point of making these is to get better at sculpting, right? And to learn techniques and everything like that. And I gotta say, I really loved how this dude turned out. Doing this project, I did learn a lot. And I gotta say, I do love this Monster Clay Gray. It's a little bit more waxy, but it feels really good. It's really fun to work with as well. Hopefully this inspired you to pick up some clay and create your own monster. And if you have any recommendations of what I should do next, definitely leave a comment and let me know. And as always, I'll see you in the next spooky video.